You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Parker Ames with us at Locked On Coogs here, looking at an eventful Wednesday, December 4th, National Signing Day for the Houston Cougars. And I want to stress that going into this, I was nervous. Houston didn't have the offensive coordinator news very public yet. And frankly, on the inside stuff I was hearing, it's not a lot. There's people that get more, obviously, but it wasn't necessarily super out there. The defensive coordinator's debacle had happened over the last 48, 36 hours. And you're wondering how it's going to impact a bunch of, let's be honest, 18-year-old kids making decisions about if they want to come join your program or not. Texas Tech is an in-state program, and Shieldwood, and a great defense that Houston had last year, Shieldwood had just left for Tech, and you were like, what about all these great defensive linemen? The bulk of this class's talent, as far as number of players go, number of high-rated players go, is on the defense side of the ball. And so what does that say about this? Unless they're not good offensive players, I shouldn't say that. I should put some stars in this class on the defense side of the ball, right? Houston had 20 signees on signing, 20 signees, not commits, 20 signees on National Signing Day Wednesday. Only lost out on one committed kid that ended up flipping at the last second and signing somewhere else to Mississippi State. For what it's worth, that's not Texas Tech. So while Shieldwood may have impacted not coming to Houston, it's not like he stole him and took him with him either. There's another, I should point out, another kid that was committed to Houston that has opted to give it some time to wait and think about it. They have a small window here and then another one in early part of 2025 they can sign in. And so he's going to take some more time to think about it, think it through. Probably wants to see who the hire is, totally understand that kind of a thing, right? But on the whole, you still got 20 signees in a great class. Depending on the analytic thing you look at, when you look at stars and rankings and so on, it could argue it's one of the best classes in Houston Cougar football history and modern recruiting, obviously, since we're doing these rankings and national things. Classes ranked number 48th overall in 24/7, 8th in the Big 12, 43rd overall in On3, 7th in the Big 12, and 49th overall in Rivals, 9th in the Big 12. So you kind of see that they're in that 40-ish range nationally and around the middle of the Big 12 as far as more conference located. And I got to say, for a Willie Fritz staff that did a lot of these signings, or signed all these guys, I guess, technically, without a coordinator, that's pretty strong, both on the kids' perspective, the program perspective, and I would also argue the position coaches and folks still on staff. I think that we forget that so many of these recruiting moments happen between people that maybe aren't a coordinator, but a quarterback coach, a quality control person, or just a recruiting personnel person that are all making these interactions, these relationships, and showing off what the Houston program can be with that recruit wearing red and white, right? And obviously Fritz staying on. If it's Fritz's second year, and they saw a little bit of what the culture was a year ago, it's a big, big deal. The class has 15 kids from the state of Texas in it. Also a big deal. Fritz made a big thing, a big statement since over and over again since he got hired, that they were going to stay focused on recruits that they could drive to. The goal was to not fly. He mentioned the Big 12 media days before the season started that he had not flown for a recruit trip at that point. He's staying in Texas and Louisiana and only making car trips to these recruits' houses and things like that, when obviously all when it's legal. And that's showing up in the commitments and signees as well. I think as far as a position goes, I mentioned it earlier, that the defensive line is one of the, whether it's Carmelo Brooks or DK Mays, and there's several defensive line prospects in this I think you're going to hear about as like sophomores and juniors making a lot of plays really early in their careers. Freshman linemen, it can be like a year to gain some size and get ready for the adjusted physicality because you've just been one of the best athletes in your high school or best athletes in your area, and now you're playing Division I football. But these guys are going to make impacts early on the defensive line. I think there's a number of them that will. Good DBs, good receivers, good running backs, good linebackers. Of course, I don't mean to say none of them are, but the single name star of the class, and not just because he's a quarterback, but because he truly is a star of the class, is Ridge Point High School's Austin Carlisle at quarterback. He's, I guess, a high-end 3-star. If you look at like the number ranking, he's like as high as you can be to be a 3-star. But he is a 3-star quarterback. He's also listed at about 5'10", and I think that height's probably the only thing dinging him when you watch him. He's a true dual threat, like D1 track speed type of speed in the 100, 200. I think someone's pointed out he hit 23.7 miles per hour in a quarterback run just last season as far as his speed on the field. For reference, that's faster than Zion Chris was on the field against TCU and that big run he had there, right? Guy's got a great arm. Guy's got crazy stats. You can go look at a bunch of different box scores and stuff like that from his high school games. But guy just lit it up. I think the biggest thing about Austin Carlisle, though, is, well, two things. Biggest thing about him in the present tense is that he's the best quarterback, high school quarterback in the Houston area, and he chose Houston. The best quarterback in college football is Cam Ward. He's also from Houston. He didn't choose Houston 3 different times, right? You can go on a long list of guys that have not come to the University of Houston that were great high school quarterbacks in the Houston area, whether Vince Youngs or whomever, right? Austin Carlisle is the best high school quarterback in the class 2025, and he chose Houston. Next year's class, Keyshawn Henderson is the best athlete in the city of Houston, in the state of Texas. Some people have someone athlete in the country. He plays quarterback as well. In the class 2026 in the city of Houston, he's committed to Houston at this point as well, right? And I think because Houston says he can play quarterback, he's actually they've got a pretty good inside track to him too. Other thing about Carlisle is that from a leadership perspective, Willie Fritz made the comment on Wednesday during a media availability that Carlisle's the kid that he's going to have come back and be a recruiter for the program once he's done playing, because he, as soon as he committed and ever since then, and on signing day, it has come play with me. Let's do this in Houston. Let's do this together. We mentioned a year ago with Mo Williams being a safety from Shadow Creek, doing the same kind of thing and really helping build up that class once Willie Fritz took over. Really important to kind of have those figureheads in each class, and it makes a big deal when it's a quarterback as well, obviously. Other big graphics getting put out on social media, Twitter, stuff like that, kind of like the signing day graphics on Wednesdays. You had, and what may actually be bigger for the immediate season, you had the announced return of a handful of key starters on defense. The program put together some graphics for Brandon Mack, Latro McCutchen, and Carlos Allen, who all tweeted out that they are returning to Houston next season instead of opting to, be done with school because they played there however many years, or to transfer out or try and go pro, whatever, that they all are going to use that eligibility to come back next year. And I think there's real, thought to, will these guys do that with Shieldwood leaving? Are they Fritz guys? Are they Wood guys? Are they transferring around, get me to the pros kind of guys? Having key players at, frankly, I guess technically each level of the defense. Brandon Mack played the dog position, which is kind of like a linebacker, kind of like a defensive end. Carlos Allen being an interior defensive lineman. Latro McCutchen playing a DB. Kind of leaders on the field at each different area, saying that I want to come back and play. I don't even know who the defense coordinator is, but I'm going to play for that Fritz guy. I think it's really, really important for this program. And so, we'll see how many more people do that. We'll see how many people decide to go pro. We'll see how many people hit the transfer portal. We see how many people mull it out and wait it out and see who the coach is or who the defense coordinator is, right? I don't think there's a wrong answer for a kid trying to do what's best for them in that situation. I would advocate to play Fritz. That's my 2 cents. But, it would just be interesting to see how many guys follow Carlos, Latrell, and Brandon's lead in that. Keeping a close eye on that, close eye on a lot of things. And, of course, we're also keeping a close eye on the defensive coordinator position, the open position at defense coordinator. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and you can get ready to take on the NFL action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats, you live play-by-play, and so much more on the same place that you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.